follows. He says that I may preach there also, for that is why I came out. Jesus came to preach. Jesus came to preach the message of the gospel. He came to preach the kingdom of God. And these people were coming obviously for some other reason, or else Jesus would have stayed. Throughout the book of Mark, people chase after Jesus because they want something done for them. And it's not that they want to be taught. They just want to be healed. They want Him to solve their problems. So, Jesus has people looking for Him, and He says, nope, let's go somewhere else. I've got to preach this message. If this people isn't going to listen to me, I've got to keep going. So I think that's carrying on into this passage right here. Jesus is upset because this man is only concerned about his leprosy. That's a tough situation. But I think that just goes to show that what Jesus was here to do was even more important than that. So let's move on here. We're to verse 42, and it says, and immediately the leprosy left him, and he was made clean. Awesome. We're rejoicing, right? Like this guy is like, finally, I'm clean. I don't have to live outside of camp. I can actually go talk to people. I can go back home. I can be with my family. Like we're all rejoicing, right? Praise God, He just healed somebody. What does Jesus say to him? Jesus sternly charged him and sent him away at once. That's some pretty interesting language that Mark uses. Because earlier, he used the same language as when Jesus cast out a demon. That's a pretty intense language right there. So Jesus sternly charged the man and sent him away at once and said to him, we have an opportunity here where Jesus is going to command the man, and we're going to find out if this man was really about his healing or if he was about the message of God and about Christ. So let's find out what Jesus says. He says, see that you say nothing to anyone, but go show yourself to the priest and offer for your cleansing what Moses commanded for a proof to them. Okay, so this first thing right here, why would he say that? He's just been healed. Why would Jesus not want somebody to go out and say, Jesus healed me? Why wouldn't He want him to do that? Like that's, for instance, I'm a Cubs fan. That's sad. But I'm a Cubs fan, okay? Just think about your favorite team. I'm thinking about the Cubs. They haven't won in over 100 years, okay? Like, they're terrible. If they were to win, it would be, we'd be jumping for joy. And by we, I mean me and all you others who are Cubs fans out there. So let's say this year the Cubs win the World Series. Right? Right? You all laugh, but it could happen, right? The Cubs win the World Series. What am I going to do? I'm going to scream, shout for joy, holler, cry, tears of joy maybe. You know, it's been such a long time. I'm excited. I got to go tell somebody. I got to let that news out. And then you come up to me and you say, yeah, Joe, you can't tell me. Don't show any excitement. Act like it didn't happen. That would just burn me up. I've got something inside of me that it's not happened in over 100 years, and I want to tell somebody. Like, I'm happy, right? That's the way this guy is, except for on a more high degree. This guy has just been healed from like a terrible disease, and of course he's going to go tell his friends. Of course he's going to go out and tell people. And Jesus says, don't tell anyone. Why? Why would He say that? I think it's because the people who were coming after Him, including this guy, were missing the point of Christ coming here. He didn't want this man to go out and tell people that Jesus heals. Jesus healed me physically, because that would be all that they're concerned about. They're distracted from the message of the gospel. That is how important the message of the gospel was to Christ. Sure, he was compassionate and he healed this man. But he told him, don't go tell anyone. Because I don't want that to be what I'm about. That is not what I'm about. The second thing is also interesting. He says, go show yourself to the priest. Now I said earlier that lepers had to go to the priest to get themselves checked out, to be told if they were clean or unclean. Well, Jesus tells him, just go straight to the priest, tell him, hey, I've been healed, what do you think? Is it true? Is it not true? I think this tells us that Jesus was still abiding by the law, which is awesome. Because if Jesus didn't abide by the law, that would mean he's not perfect, which would mean that he's not God, which would mean that he can't save us. So that's good news right there. He wanted this man to abide by the law. So he gives him two commands. Don't tell anyone, and go show yourself to a priest. If this man goes according to what Jesus said, then I think it shows that this man cared about Jesus and his message, and not just about his healing. So let's go into verse 45 and see what the leper chooses to do. It says, oh, that's not good. But he went out and began to talk freely about it, and to spread the news, so that Jesus could no longer openly enter any city or town, but was out in desolate places, and people were coming to him from every quarter. This man completely ignored what Jesus had asked him to do. He was healed, and he thinks, that's all that matters. I'm going to go tell my friends so that they can be healed too. I'm going to go tell my friends that this is what Jesus does. Because this man doesn't get it. He doesn't get the message of the gospel. He doesn't get why Jesus came. And then, people are coming to him. Just like we were saying, people continue to come to Jesus for their own gain and not to hear his message. And then what happens to Jesus? It's interesting right here. It says that he was out in desolate places. Jesus trades places with the leper. The leper was out. He had no community. He was kicked out. Now Jesus, he's forced out into desolate places. He's forced to be in lonely situations. All because this man didn't get it. This man got what he wanted, and he went out and he did his own thing. You know, I think that it's interesting that the Jews were looking for the Messiah. Why wouldn't they get it? Why wouldn't they get it? I mean, you look at their history. You look at Exodus. They're in slavery. God brings them out of slavery. They fall into idolatry continuously. And then he sets up a king, King David, who's like the best king of all time. And then he says, and that kingdom fails. That kingdom fails. And then they continue to fall into idolatry, and they're oppressed by other nations. And Jesus is prophesied about multiple times. God says, I will send someone who will sit on the throne of David forever. I will send someone to heal the nations. I will send someone to heal the lame, the sick, the blind, the deaf. So these people are looking for that guy for hundreds of years. And then finally he comes, and they miss the point. What were they looking for? They were looking for somebody who was going to come and take care of their earthly problems. The leper wanted his leprosy taken away. He didn't care about the message of God. He only cared about his problems, his earthly problems taken away. The Jews, think about what they wanted. They wanted a king. They wanted someone to take them out of the oppression of the Romans. Like they were in bad situations all the time. And God would continually bring them out. But they wanted someone who's going to bring them out and rule them forever, to lead them to peace. And they thought Jesus was this guy because they were so focused on their own problems. They were so focused on their physical, external problems. They weren't looking at their hearts. They were focused on what Jesus could do for them now. So what did they do? What did they do to Jesus? Because Jesus didn't give them what they wanted, they killed him. They set Jesus up to be their king, and no less than a week later, because Jesus said, "My kingdom is not of this world." They're like, what? Who are you then? You're not here to save us. You're not our king. So they drive a crown of thorns into his head. They crucify him, make him to be like a thief, make him to be a nobody. All because they didn't get what they were looking for. But what they were looking for all along was the wrong thing. Doesn't that kind of sound like our world a little bit today? Misconceptions of Jesus, missing his point, missing why he came. You know, we've got churches out here today that preach, well, if you love Jesus, you'll be rich. Right? If you love Jesus, he can heal your sicknesses. If you love Jesus, you'll have a perfect marriage. If you love Jesus, you'll get good grades and you'll be successful in life. If you love Jesus, you'll have a great family. If you love Jesus, you'll have good friends. We hear that all the time. We feel like we're entitled to it because Jesus. That's what he's supposed to do, right? He's supposed to make our life perfect and great and awesome. Well, what are we missing? We're missing the fact that Jesus didn't necessarily come to solve those problems. Jesus came to solve this problem right here. Because we're blind spiritually. We're deaf spiritually. We're lame spiritually. That's why he came. It says it right there in Mark 1. I came to preach. I came to preach the glory of God in his kingdom. What are we missing today? What point are we missing today? You know, I was talking about other people, how we have churches that say, preach, prosperity gospel. Well, what about us? You know, I think about when I was in high school and college and the things that I strived for and thought that I deserved because I loved Jesus. I thought I should get good grades because I'm working hard and Jesus will bless me. Well, that sounds kind of petty and like I'm missing the point, but that's exactly what I thought. I thought, if I work hard, people will like me. Maybe for some of you, it's, if Jesus really loved me, my parents wouldn't have gotten divorced. If Jesus was really all that he says he is, maybe I would be healed. Or maybe I would have the friends that I want. Or maybe I would be accepted. But what if that is just a small part of what Jesus came to do? What if that's true? I missed it. We miss the point all the time. Christians and non-Christians miss it all the time of why Jesus came. Because we entitle ourselves to physical and external and worldly things. We get so distracted with the here and now. Paul says in Philippians, he says, I count all things as loss for the sake of knowing Christ my King. What does that even mean? He's like, I don't care about